Hi, Rachel. Welcome to the Finite Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here, Rachel. You head up Clarity, the agency, the global marketing and communications agency, and they've been a sponsor of Finite for a while now.
That's right.
So I feel like this episode has been a long time coming.
Indeed. Yeah, and it's fantastic to be able to talk to you all.
Yeah, great. So we have actually done research, existing events, and other content programs with Clarity. So I think we'll probably find those really useful in today's conversation. But we're mainly going to be talking about your area of expertise, client services.
That's
and
right.
We're using that expertise to help Finite members decide whether they should stick with their current agency, if they're kind of living up to the standards, whether they should hire a new one, which agency to hire, and kind of like set some benchmarks for how agencies should be servicing their clients.
Great.
Cool. But before we do that, I would love to hear more about your background, your career so far, and how you got into agency life.
Into agency life, goodness. So we're going back some way now. So I'm the CEO of Clarity Global, and I took on that role in January of this year. I've been with Clarity for just coming over 5 years. I joined as the UK MD. I then became the EMEA MD when we took on an acquisition in Amsterdam, which was our first mainland Europe wholly owned office. And then I became Chief Client Officer. And that was the bit where I really indulged my love of agency life, which is working with a multitude of different clients and teams in different geographies. Prior to that, I've always been an agency. I worked at Next 15, one of the agencies within that. So that was Byte, which merged with another agency in the group that became Archetype. I was there for a long time and worked all the way up from the large-scale enterprise tech players like the Ciscos and the HPs and the Sun Microsystems of old, and then up to some of the startups. So I launched WeWork in their first building, which they opened in London, and Nest before they were acquired by Google. So I've been able and very lucky in my career to have worked with different types of organizations, but all predominantly in the tech sector.
Awesome. That sounds like a really impressive background and definitely some famous brands there. And yeah, maybe the reason why those brands are famous, I guess.
Oh, well, no, definitely not. Always a team effort, but very lucky to have worked on some fantastic names and with some fantastic people at all of those organizations.
Yeah, of course. And how about your role now at Clarity, who you're working with, how you're leading it?
Yeah, well, we're a team of 100 people. Very smart consultants. We have sector specialisms within the tech sector, and we are based across our geographies. So we have offices in London, Cornwall, we're in Amsterdam, we're in New York, we're in LA, and we are in Sydney. And some of that is large amounts of growth organically, but also acquisitions in service lines and geographies that we knew were going to enhance our offering and service our clients better. So I don't spend as much time now as I would like on client work. That's something I always enjoy and want to do more of. But it's about managing the business, ensuring we're providing the right environment as an agency. I want to attract the best people because the best people in turn do the best work for our clients. So that's what we're trying to build here.
And it definitely sounds like a big operation, especially all of those global markets, kind of teaming them together as well. So it also sounds like from your career that you've had a lot of hands-on experience with clients and you know what marketing and communications professionals are going through, I guess. And that could be part of what makes a great agency, understanding your clients' needs. What do you think our listeners and other B2B tech marketers are dealing with right now? And what are their pain points that agencies can really help with?
Yes. 2024 has been a tough year for everybody in marcoms generally. It's been a difficult year to navigate. But from what we're hearing from the clients that we talk to, CMOs, those in the marketing teams, I think they have got limited resources. They have smaller teams. They're juggling multiple hats. They have creative constraints, but they are one team. And I think they need and use those agencies to help support them coming up with those sparks of ideas and things that they can deliver for campaigns. There are always budget constraints internally. Everybody's fighting for their budget. I think also in-house the tough part of that is managing the siloed approach. A fair few of our clients still are very siloed in the way that they activate on their plans. And I think it's up to the agencies to see if they can come in and support. Can they be the red thread that works across multiple different departments within an organization, which is harder for somebody who's in-house. So we as agencies have to, tread very carefully. There are maybe very strict guardrails that we have to stick within because that's the way the organization is set up. But if we can be more supportive and helpful for our contacts by working out what else is going on in other organizations for the benefit of the group, then that's what we would try and do. So yes, I think budget, limited resource, that ability to drive creatives. Potentially you end up drinking the Kool-Aid. I think you sometimes use agencies to come in and give you that third-party perspective. What else is going on in the outside within your ecosystem, within your sector? And that can be hard if you are solely in-house, and that can be very difficult. I think on the other side of it, and I think where agencies can see that some of the benefits of being in-house, of course, are the fact that they have got access to key decision makers, so they can get those decisions made quicker. They can also see the impact of the work they do from strategy right through to execution. And it is one brand. So it's one set of values, one set of products, as opposed to multiple, which is what the agencies have. The flip side, of course, of that being, because we're in agencies and we work across multiple different organizations, we can bring all that knowledge to bear when we then advise and can support a CMO in what they're doing.
Awesome. That's a really great overview. And I also think, from my perspective, we've just heard about so many tech layoffs in the tech industry over the past couple of years that put so much pressure on in-house teams, and they almost further depend on agencies to be that supporting partner, that right-hand arm.
Yeah, totally. I mean, lots of organizations, we were waking up in the height of some of that, particularly in the tech companies, where whole comms teams just were let go overnight. And that was incredibly hard for them. But those remaining have now got to juggle multiple hats. So there's an expectation, I think, in agency land that we know our clients are under extreme pressure, constantly being asked to prove ROI, measurements of success, actually how we're delivering back for the business. And so agencies have got to be agile. They've got to understand those sensitivities. They've got to see where they can be supportive. Mm-hmm. It's the value add piece, knowing that we're doing sometimes more, having to do more with less. And that's, I think, just what we're trying to navigate this year.
Yeah, definitely. And you have mentioned a couple of kind of opportunities in this kind of messy economic situation right now, where in-house marketers can actually shine when they use an agency. Do you see any kind of positive impacts on B2B marketers right now that might help and strengthen relationships between agencies and in-house?
Yes, definitely. I think there was a time when I think there was more competition between the in-house comms lead and the agency. And I think that has changed. We are definitely seeing more collaboration. And that's probably how it should work. The best partnerships to get the best results are where we actually see complementary skills. In-house, very clear what they want to achieve, and the agency coming together and saying, well, let's work together and work who's best to own what elements. I mean, the advent of AI and how that's going to get rolled out across organizations, I think is going to force agencies to think differently about the value that we can bring. So it might be easier for in-house marketeers to deliver some of the work themselves, which means that the agencies have got to deliver what I would call sort of the higher value advisory specialist service value. So what is it that we do extremely well because we have that expertise, which we've brought into our organizations, that then can add value to the in-house CMO? And I think we should definitely be looking at that. I think we're seeing many more briefs from clients where they're not just talking to us about transactional briefs. What can you do for the next 3 months for us? It's very much more, actually, this is our North Star, and we have a framework now, near, next, and we always work from that next standpoint. So this is what we need to be achieving in 18 months' time. Help us come up with a plan that we will need to activate to get us there. And I think that long-term partnership, so that they don't have to constantly be changing out agencies, the agency can really bed themselves into the organization, understand the in-house nuances and what needs to be achieved, and then build that plan over the course of time. That's the best partnership. That's what agencies and clients ultimately, I think, are always hoping for.
Yeah, definitely. I can see why. It's about not just being a spare pair of hands and making up for a team that you've just laid off, but actually using the brains and the years of experience, as you've just shown us, to guide their strategies. Okay. I'm imagining a B2B marketer is looking for a new agency, and they've got 5 great ones that have very similar websites, very similar offering. They're all kind of tech focused. They've all got similar pitches. Some might be more creative than others. I'm not sure what's kind of a litmus test for a great agency. What should these marketers be prioritizing when they look for an agency?
Great question.
Green flags.
Yes, exactly. The green flags. And it is a great question, because it is very difficult, I imagine, when they've got a whole load of agencies coming up against. I think a lot of it comes down to chemistry, on the assumption that most agencies can do most of the work, and we can discuss the ability, and the success they have with that. There's got to be chemistry. You've got to be working with these individuals day in, day out. You've got to know that they understand your business, that you can have fun with them, but ultimately they know what success is looking like, and they're willing to put in the extra time to deliver on that. Knowing the sector is obviously incredibly important, being confident, having the right client handler, knowing who that person is going to be on a day-to-day basis, but also the quality of the junior team. I think they're often underestimated, and they are incredibly smart. They're ambitious. They're very curious, more so, I would argue, than even in a decade ago. So it's understanding the makeup of the team that you're going to get. It always amazes me when people don't want to see the full team that may be going to work on their organization. So I think that's it. And then it's all the other factors that you want to be asking. How responsive are they? How transparent are the communications and the way of working? Because that's incredibly important. Measurability. How are we measuring results for that client? It can't just be a tick box exercise. It has to be more about outcomes as opposed to outputs. Agencies can talk about how many bits of coverage they get or how many forms of content they can create, but none of that matters if it isn't actually delivering back to the business. So I think there are lots of questions that in-house marketers can ask when they're going to their agencies, over and above how creative are you, and then the campaign ideas they might see in a pitch process. It's actually getting into the detail of how do we work, what are our working practices, how responsive are we going to be, because those are the deal breakers when you're trying to choose an agency. Definitely. Those are great, tangible kind of checkpoints that marketers can use. I think that maybe we should put that into a little bit of content after and share it in the episode description, so people can actually go through and tick off whether they think these agencies have those attributes or not. Yes, totally. Definitely. Totally. Cool. So we mentioned at the start what B2B marketers are going through, and it is a lot, but it also presents a lot of opportunity. So we actually did research with Clarity recently, and one of the main findings was that 70% of B2B market leaders increased their market share over the past year, widening the gap with competitors. Now, that's quite shocking to me. It makes me feel like startups and scale-ups have a really big job ahead of them. They're competing with these huge brands that only get more and more big. It's like billionaires just become billionaires, and they leave the rest to start fighting with each other. So how can agencies, from your perspective, help marketers solve that challenge and kind of beat those market competitors? Yes, and that's the big ask. I think where we set out as an agency, and I think lots of very good agencies would do, is understanding from an insights perspective, what is the landscape? Truly understanding competitors, truly understanding how to go to market and reach their customers and prospects. And I think once that exercise is done, there's a whole arsenal of marketing tools that between an in-house team and an agency, they can come together and look to generate as much opportunity as possible. And it's everything from lead generation exercises and that we can pull together, understanding that audience better, which I think is crucial. I think lead generation strategies in terms of high quality content and how the content is being used and where it's being placed. We are producing many more robust content strategies for our clients where we are having to produce valuable, informative content that are solving real life problems for customers and prospects. And that is quite often the Trojan horse to get in. So we're seeing an awful lot of that. SEO optimization, actually making sure that we are primed for search engines and we are optimizing websites for clients. We do a lot of that ourselves. Lots of agencies do that, but it's obviously one of their key assets. So we should be doubling down on that. So I think there's just such a multitude of channels. I think what the conversation has to be between in-house and agency is who owns those channels, who is best placed to be in charge of them, and then how do you link it all up together? What is the red thread running throughout that? Mm-hmm. Quite often we might be asked by a client to come up with their messaging, and we will do that so all the spokespeople are aligned. But if that isn't the messaging that then appears on the website, we've already got a disconnect. And then if that isn't the wording and the messaging that then goes out in marketing collateral, then again, there's a disconnect. So I think that is the job of a very good comms with a digital marketing lens agency can bring to an in-house marketer. They should be the one doing those checks and balances to support them on that.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned it before. It's this kind of creative outside external perspective that agencies can offer brands to help them increase the quality of their content. We're in the age of AI. Anyone can create content now and just blast it out and hope it gets views. Yes. But I guess you're saying it's the content that hits.
Totally.
It needs to make the impact.
It's got to be, yeah, absolutely. Specific ways in which that we can best reach customers and prospects. And that's changing all the time. And the insights should be showing us that. Where are the trends? Where are they consuming their information? Where are they going to get the information that they need to make those decisions? Is it LinkedIn? Is it on social? Is it long form content? Where is it that they're getting that? And then we need to best match our activities with that, obviously in conjunction with our clients.
And I guess that's what would be so beneficial about having an agency that wears all those hats, so that they're not siloed from other agencies and the in-house team. They can actually work within this internal realm to do so. Yes,
exactly. I mean, we've got some clients which have been with us for 10, 15 years. And I think that's because we're not complacent, and it would be easy to say, well, actually, how do you keep fresh and bring fresh thinking to it? I think we're very deliberate about that whole process. We religiously do client reviews on a quarterly and 6 monthly basis to make sure that we are, looking around and making sure that we're bringing fresh thinking to those clients. But I mean, that's an absolutely crucial part of it. Yeah.
And just out of interest, if you were working with one in-house team and you didn't have access to multiple teams within an organization, how do you kind of enhance the communication? How do you create good, solid communication with clients on a daily basis?
I mean, it's variations on a theme depending on how the individual works. I mean, our largest team is based out of the UK, but many of our client contacts are in the US. So we're managing time zones. It has to be efficient communication. We have joint aliases. We happen to use Slack. Other people will use Teams. It's smart, streamlined, efficient running of campaigns for our clients. It's hugely important because you can get bogged down in the account administration. And that just that's not the sexy part of the job. It doesn't motivate my team. We do know there's reporting that has to happen for large organizations, and we make sure we know that up front so we're prepared for that. But it's actually the doing that's hugely important, and being able to make those decisions as quickly as we possibly can. So that's part of the whole onboarding process. How do you want us to work with you? What is the best way to get things moving forward?
Okay, so it's kind of letting the client decide how they want to lead this relationship with you.
Yes.
And I assume that feedback comes into that quite a lot as well, kind of that measurement piece, showing what you're doing, and then having that two-way
communication. Totally. We also do lots of client satisfaction calls. So we appoint somebody to every client they're on who would have a relationship with our in-house content over and above the core day-to-day team. Because again, we do provide that third-party perspective, but also you might need somebody on top of that is asking some of the deeper questions outside of the BAU, which can be moving and working very, very quickly. So we've always got those checks and balances. Are we still delivering? Are the results what we hoped? What's the internal feedback? Where can we support you more? Where do we think things are changing? And we should think about that for the quarter following. So it's always about asking questions.
Awesome. I love that. We've talked a lot about what good client service looks like, and we've given people a checkbox for what they should be looking for. What to you are some agency red flags? What would strike as a no-go for you if you were choosing an agency?
Yes, I think we sometimes hear from clients, or we've met with an agency and they've promised us guaranteed results. And I always say we don't make promises. We can definitely show you examples or where we have delivered. We can show you our expertise. We can prove to you how the engagement will work and what our expectations are. But I think be wary of people who are making grandiose promises from the get-go. Lots of the activity that we do takes time. It's not instant. I mean, on digital marketing, you can see results very, very quickly. On a comms side where you're building reputation, that just takes longer. So I think that's one red flag potentially to consider. Creativity, it's the part of the job that everybody loves, coming up with big ideas. I think they've also got to be based in pragmatism. The reality of being able to deliver them, I think, is hugely important. So often when we will pitch ideas to clients, it's you can do these tomorrow because we know that we have everything that we need to make them happen. And here's our blue sky ideas, which we're actually probably not going to be able to deliver on or activate for some time because we've either not earned the right to do that yet. We need to build up that credibility, or actually we don't think we're set up in a way yet that we're going to be able to deliver that with the best results. So again, healthy bit of pragmatism. There's nothing wrong with that. Sending in, I think I touched on this earlier, sending in lots of seniors who you may never see again. Who is the team? Who are you going to get? Understand their role. How often will you see them? As a client, you're paying for that. And I think that's something that you have to consider. And all agencies are moving to this, but I think as a client, you need to be asking for it. Less about the outputs. When we're pulling together scopes of work, it's not about how many bits of coverage we're trying to achieve or how many blogs we can write in a given month. It's got to be about what value are you bringing as an agency to help me hit up my business objectives. And they've got to be able to articulate that when you have that conversation. Hugely important. And we're trying to educate some of our clients in that as well, because in many cases, it's a traditional form was, well, how many bits of coverage can you get for us? That makes us feel great. We've appeared in the right places. But the whole fragmented comms and marketing landscape has changed so much that that's just not going to be relevant as we move forward. We've got to find different ways of engaging with our audiences. So yes, so those are a few things that they could potentially consider. Yeah,
definitely. And beyond the kind of usual missing deadlines and not hitting targets and stuff that I'm sure our B2B marketers know all about.
Yes. I mean, that's table stakes. If you're expecting from an agency to deliver, you're going to know pretty quickly if that's going to happen or not.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to have an agency on board for 6 months. You'll know if you're feeling. Most marketers I know have got that inherent sense. Something's not quite right. This feels harder than it should. I'm doing more of a heavy lift than I expected. This isn't how I thought it was going to be. This is supposed to make my life easier. And then, so I think, as I say, table stakes there. It's the other things, the added value. Do they care as much as I care? Do they have a vested interest in us being successful? And I think that curiosity and the value add is hugely important.
Yeah, and it can be hard when you're working with people and they're delivering and it doesn't feel quite right, but to think that maybe all agencies are like this and I'm expecting too much, and you're here to say, no, you're not.
Yes, no. Obviously, as an agency leader, hearing from somebody, oh my goodness, your team have achieved more in the last 3 months than the agency we have had on for 10 months. It's like, my goodness, we absolutely don't. That gives a very, very bad name to agencies who work incredibly hard and are very good at what they do.
Very true. Yeah. Agencies have just as hard a job as B2B marketers. So yeah.
Indeed.
Let's expect the best. Thank you so much for coming on, Rachel. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Great. Thank you, Jodi.